That's a song called "White Woman with a Nigger." Did you ever notice a white woman that's with a nigger has to tell somebody you can be within 5 minutes? They have to let you know during that time. Oh, he's black, by the way. They gotta
define themselves by when it's no longer your definition.
It's a song.
His definition is I'm an abused guy, so I have a right to beat up everybody.
Oh my God. You don't know where I come from. It's a great song. White woman with a nigger, white woman with a nigger, white woman with the, because she thinks her parts are bigger, his parts are bigger, and it ended. It's great. And then it said, and you meet them on the street, and within 5 minutes, they can't help themselves, and then they have to let you know that they really are a white woman with a nigger, white woman. It's great. Great song. Oh, I'm into ice hockey.
Are you into it?
It's white men.
Yeah, I heard all this shit going on.
Right.
Great.
Hey, I gotta learn the game. It's
all right, and we're live. Hey, what's up, ladies and gentlemen?
Hey.
What's up, Jimmy? What's up, Christina? For everybody's knowledge, this is Christina Ward. Really cool person. So let's
Hi.
let's do this episode. You know, we're doing a follow-up episode on Into the Program, which is an episode I did, basically a biop of who I am and what happened whenever I was in the Crossroads program, one of the ice cap programs that was ran by Bob Meehan. So I think that Christina has like a better insight into the program and other things that have to do with cultism in itself. So this is Christina. Say hi.
Hi, everybody. Good to be here.
So we're going to talk about, I want to talk some about what your experience was like whenever you were in the program. And I know you made it a lot further in the program than I did. I only made it to.
One way of putting it.
It's like one of those weird things, though. You know what I mean? It's definitely one of those weird things. You're like, well, you made it farther than I did. And when I had mentioned this in my previous cast about this, I got a lot of messages from friends that were in the pro. And it's so strange. We all kind of click together after we leave.
That's awesome.
You only really know people for the last several years of your life, and those people were only the people in the program that left the program.
Oh, it's so true. Yeah. Two of my closest friends are people I met in the program, and we remained friends after leaving, and the friendship, of course, got drastically better once we were out of it. But it's an interesting thing to kind of share that history that other people cannot understand. It's such a layer of our lives that we have a unique knowledge about. It feels like this superpower to our friendship because we understand that about one another.
Well, there was trauma. You know what I mean? Like, you guys have a shared trauma when it comes to your life.
Precisely.
And that tends
You're exactly right.
Yeah, it tends to bond people more than regular friendships or relationships. Marriages that are bonded in trauma tend to last longer. Like some kind of traumatic event brought those two people together. They tend to last longer. It's a weird, So tell me about how you got into the program. How did you get in?
Yeah, so I come from a very conservative Catholic Republican family.
Okay.
Really, really sheltered. And when I got old enough, which for me was about like 14, 15, I just discovered the rest of the world outside of that little bubble. And I went pretty hard with it, I will say. I really loved alcohol, and I loved LSD even more. So I had a good time with those.
Well, what's my drug of choice? Well, what have you got?
Awesome. awesome. Thank you for that serenade. Whoever that was, I appreciate it.
It's Jimmy.
I'm just here for the color commentary.
Thank you. I like that.
So you went out, you did some LSD, you were drinking, and then...
Yeah, I mean, I was, I really was in emotionally not a good space.
Right.
For most of my teenage years, I really struggled pretty hard, which I think that could be most accurately explained through depression and trauma.
Right.
In my history, before I even ever found substances, like those were a feature of my being. And so I'm running along like this. My family is not knowing what the hell to make of me. At varying points, they are, trying to kick me out and trying to get me to go to therapy and trying to. For a while, they talked about doing an exorcism.
Oh!
Whoa.
It's an interesting time in my life.
But you were just like a teenage girl, like exploring,
I mean,
getting to know the world. I mean,
I was
an exorcism.
a pretty unhappy teenage girl. Like, I
Yeah.
needed good help, but I think addiction was not the most accurate frame for my problems. My problems were that I was not a good fit for the culture I was born into. And
Right.
and I struggled to, find my way out of that. So then I have a sister who is close in age to me, and we've always been close. And she, through one of her very good friends, was introduced to Crossroads when I guess she was about 15 and I was 16.
Yeah.
And she got really into it because she, like a lot of kids, we both were lonely and wanted friends. And
Yeah.
wanted, we came from this family that we really didn't feel we fit too well in. And so she really took to Crossroads right away and loved it. I was like, that looks fucking crazy. Keep me away from that.
Yeah.
And my parents got really into it, and
That's how they get you.
Yeah, exactly. The counselors pretty much recognized my family.
You had money.
Is easy to manipulate,
Yeah.
and not necessarily have much money, but aren't very rational thinkers about how to use what they have.
Yeah.
So they worked my family to get me in while I put up a good fight for 4 months. I would go and see Devin Donald, and he said that it was like playing mental chess because I just would argue against everything. And then eventually I ended up getting kicked out of my house and then got kicked out of the next place I was at, and I really was not doing well. And my family, I kind of got tricked into the group because it was a situation where it was I was either going to be homeless or couch surfing.
That's how they got you. Yeah, that's how they get you.
Right. Or I could go back, live with my parents, and go into this treatment program. And so I was like, okay, fuck, you got me. So I did the treatment program, and as much as I really thought I was just going to kind of go through the motions so that I could have a place to live, I unfortunately, within the first few weeks, I was so susceptible to being love bombed in the way that they do.
Yes.
I was I was virtually dying for a sense of belonging, and that program, finding it at the time that I did, it was really a huge, thriving program. There were hundreds of, several hundred at least kids in the St. Louis area. And it just, I was so special all of a sudden, and I had something to offer others that made me feel useful. And so I was like, okay, well, this is what's up. And I went through outpatient deal, and I went through inpatient. They sent me to
Oh my God.
for step 2.
They got you.
It was pretty heavy-handed
They
and
got you
unnecessary. But that was like several $1,000. So there was that. And
about 20, right? Close?
Yes, to my recollection,
yeah, about
it was
20. To my
Yeah.
thought process, to about that era, about 20.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I recall as well. And an outpatient, I think, was $7,000 each.
Yeah.
And so yeah, the numbers start adding up quickly here.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, so that's how I got in. Once I was there, it was just like I could not resist having a sense of belonging, being just showered with love, all these attractive people telling me that they loved me. I'm like, what? I had no defenses against that. I was completely easy prey for.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, because you guys are both in it. So how often did you guys have these, I guess, group meetings or whatever where you saw the people in Crossroads throughout the week?
So there are 2 weekly support group meetings, and this applies to every group around the country when I was in it, and I assume it still does.
Yeah.
There were 2 weekly support group meetings that ran relatively similarly to like a 12-step group, if you're familiar with that, except like way more wild and screaming and dancing and
way more
So-
controlled too, though. Like the preamble,
Yeah,
we had a
too.
preamble, we had you know what I mean, the circle up, the preamble, basically Bernaysian like mark points, if you know what I mean. Like
what did you say? I missed that part.
you know who Edward Bernays is?
Yeah.
So like Bernaysian mark, there's Bernaysian mark points if you really look at it. Like Crossroads is a fellowship of young people and parents that, you know what I mean. There's a preamble to every meeting you go to, and then every exit had its own, and it's indoctrinating. All those things are indoctrinating. You know what I mean? That's not really too much in AA as much.
Well, and another major difference between 12-step or other like commonly known support groups for recovery, a major difference between the one that we were in is that they changed one of those 12 steps to set you up to be reliant and dependent only upon the group.
Yes.
So basically they named the group as your higher power explicitly. And which like saying that, it's like, what the fuck?
The group is your God. It's your God.
I the thing, like, I've just heard, on the outer fringes, because Rich and I go way back. He's referenced Crossroads so many times throughout our friendship or whatever. But to hear it from another perspective, it definitely, I'm starting to understand how much went into it as far as making it a cult-like organization. It's
there's
kind
so
of
much layers
fascinating.
to it. Yes, incredibly. So there's 2 weekly support group meetings, and then there are 2 weeknight functions that are like fun events supposed to be. And then if you are so that applies to everyone who's in the group. You're expected to go to all of those. If you do not go, you will be interrogated and confronted and shamed. Shamed, hardcore shamed. Like basically, you will be told you are spiritually fucked up. That was one of their favorite diagnoses.
Oh, yeah.
What if you're sick or grandma's ill or something? I mean,
they didn't
you would
care.
have had to argue really, really skillfully to get that allowed, I suppose you could say.
Gotcha.
So there's those, and then if you are new in the program or if you have relapsed, then you're going through the formal treatment programs, which include intensive outpatient, which was 5 days a week. I think like 6 hours a day.
Yeah, $7,000.
He wasn't there when I was there. I don't know $7,000. He was probably left in between us. I went with Jason Hutchings, was the person.
Oh no. That was who? No, I said $7,000. It's going to cost you $7,000.
Oh, $7,000.
Yeah, $7,000. Yeah. It's going to cost you $7,000. Jason Hutchings was the. So I figured it out. We only have like a division of like 3 or 4 months. Like I left and
really?
like yeah, you guys came in.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's only like 3 or 4 months difference, I think.
That's wild. Okay, yeah, so we would know the similar people.
Yeah.
So there's the outpatient, and then if you are considered even more fucked up, then you would be sent to the inpatient, which is 45 in either Phoenix, Arizona, or they later added, there's one in Atlanta, Georgia, which that's
so
the one
that
I
was
ended up working.
If you had the money to pay for that.
Correct. Yes, exactly.
Right.
And they would try anything to get your parents to come up with the money. Anything.
There was no consideration.
They pulled no stop.
No.
Second mortgages, part-time jobs.
They just would continue to emphasize, like, your kid is going to die.
Yeah. Basically.
If you don't do this. If you don't do this, your kid is going to die. So, I mean, like, my parents didn't know, they didn't understand anything about mental health or, they are very malleable people. And so they just were like, okay, this is what we have to do. And they didn't think twice about, is this a manipulative situation? They didn't even know, they don't know how to recognize manipulative situations. They voted for fucking Trump. Like,
yeah. Shit happens.
So,
because I'm proud to be an American.
Right. Like all this stuff.
Where at least I know I'm free.
I love that. So yeah, I think that hopefully that answered the question. But that's what was expected on a regular basis from members. And then in addition to that, so those were the baseline features.
So wait, this was all going on when you guys were like, what, around 15, 16 years old?
15?
I was 17 when I finally entered it. I was 17, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I just turned 15 when I entered. And I left at like 17 and a half. And was like, I came up with my disillusioned moment. I brought this up before. I had started dating. And my disillusioned moment was like, I realized the person that, like, we went on a first date. And I didn't want to go. I realized it wasn't going to work out. You know what I mean? It just wasn't, nothing clicked. And my sponsor forced me to ask her out on a second date.
Ah!
And I was like, do what? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Do what? You know what I mean? Like, this isn't, nothing clicked. Like, we're good friends. You know what I mean? Like, nothing's clicking here. And so, of course, I asked her, and like, she knew it didn't click either. You know what I mean? Like, and that was
the sponsor.
What's that?
The other girl.
Yeah, the girl didn't realize it didn't click either, and like we both realized we were just. But I was forced to go ahead and ask her out on a second date.
Mm-hmm.
And I was
like, the dating stuff was so
crazy,
weird. That I think, so I was in it for 5 years, and getting out is kind of a whole nother story. But the deprogramming process really is a very, like, gradual, non-linear process.
Right.
And one of the things that I think really helped me feel validated and justified in my feelings about all of it, like the way that I really felt in my body, like that shit was fucked up, But
in your bones. Your bones.
Deep in you. You just know it. But I had been steeped so thoroughly in this system of thinking, essentially like brainwashing for exclusively for 5 years. There was no other information coming in. There was no conflict allowed in my mind. So
Yeah.
when I was coming out of it, it was a really gradual process. And one of the things that helped me feel a greater sense of like, okay, no, I'm right. That really was fucked up and abusive.
Yeah.
Was thinking about how they approached dating and sex and all, like, that entire area of our lives and identities was so thoroughly locked down and controlled, not just on the level of behavior, but even on the level of thinking and identity and dress, like how you appear, how you express yourself. Every bit of that was so thoroughly regimented that that was one of the things that really like turned the lights on more for me as I, cleared my head afterwards, was just being like that. And learning about cults and seeing that sex is a common area that is controlled by cults. So, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was, oh my God, I could tell stories for like the next year about just all the different ways that
I'll tell the
we were
biggest one.
influenced in an unhealthy way. Yeah, please.
I'll tell the biggest one.
Please.
So you know that the two people who actually run Crossroads now.
Yeah.
That was so planned that I knew that Mike wanted to actually ask somebody else on a date.
Yeah.
Mike and Amy, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
at the time before they were in a relationship and all that date, you know what I mean? Like, it even happened to the counselors and on the highest levels,
Oh,
their
dude,
whole lives
it
were
goes even higher than that.
You know,
It goes even higher than that.
really.
But let me not stop you. You go ahead.
No.
Story.
I mean, that was about as far as I was going to go with it. I mean, I knew who he actually wanted. It was a different counselor. You know what I mean? And he was completely prevented from. And I know that Amy and Mike have both wanted to leave the program multiple times.
Yeah.
They have.
Yeah, I think Amy tried to before.
They've both tried, but their whole livelihood and everything else it's completely encapsulated.
It's so hard.
It's completely
It's so
encapsulated. Who knows who co-signed on their house or on the buildings they fucking have to take responsibility for. They're so deep in the corporate stack of it that knowing business, how much I know about business now, they're so trapped on the business side that there's basically no way to walk away.
Right. Yeah, I can't even imagine what they're dealing with and where their heads are at now. Like, honestly, the dissociation is so profound when you're in that situation.
Yeah.
Like, you really are mentally cut off from so much of your own experience, because if you really could acknowledge all of what was happening,
right.
Like you simply can't tolerate it, and so you'd have to do something different, and that's really overwhelming. And sometimes people just like legitimately aren't ready, and I, having gone through all of that, I really feel for the people who are still really wrapped up in it. And initially when I left, I was like, I went through a period where I was like furious, and I needed to be. And I still have a lot of that anger when I think about all of the
everything.
I mean, God,
yeah.
All of it, exactly. It's still there. But there was a period of time where I really was like, so angry at everyone who still works there and continues to be a part of that. And I get why some people might be, but at this point I'm like, it's so nuanced and complex that like, I just continue to hope that they all can figure it out, except for there's a few of them who I don't have any hope for, and cannot muster any compassion for their suffering. But
Christine, do you still have contact with a lot of these people?
I don't have contact with anyone who is still active in it. No. There was one counselor who I maintained contact with when I left for maybe a few years, kind of hoping that he would.
Yeah.
I was hoping that I could be like a link if he was ready to get out too. But after like 5 years, it was just like, okay, he's,
right.
you know, by this point he's married and has a kid, and like he's not coming out, so I'm just gonna leave
He's
that
buried.
alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's buried.
Yeah.
So I still have contact. Like, I still know Amy, which gets
Wow.
crazy. No, that gets crazy
Yeah.
because she knows that I'm on the opposite side of this. Like, she knows
Right.
that I'm on the opposite side. And it's so weird because every time I post something about, it's just like an odd post I'll post, you know what I mean? She'll be the person that she'll comment on it. And I'm like, okay.
Wow.
And I still have contact with Kate Klein, which was Kate
No
Zaladay.
way.
Yeah, which was Kate Zaladay
Yeah.
at the time.
Yep,
I still have
remember her.
And so I still have, like, she's walked away, but in a weird sidestep. So I still have contact with some of these people. But it's, I just want to be that, like, open door of, like, all right, if you want to, you're going to need help if you walk away.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You're going to need help if you and I know a lot of these people want to walk away and they don't feel, they think their whole world's going to fall apart. And,
Oh
you
my
know,
God.
you know, they
Well,
think,
shit, when I was ready to leave, Bob requested to have, like, coffee with me, which was...
have what?
So I had a, like, goodbye coffee with Bob.
Oh,
where
a goodbye coffee with, oh shit, this is getting deep.
Yeah. And in that, man, it was they're just so fucked up, dude. It was like, he tried to give me this impression of, like, you know, you do what you need to do, and, like, we'll love you no matter what. We'll be here for you. It's essentially what he was trying to say, like, you're going to fail, and you're going to want to come back to us. What he was trying to imply, but, like, with all this sugar sweetness on top, that was really gross, you know? And in that, he said... he did so much to try and scare me about coming back to St. Louis. He was like, this is so fucking paranoid, but he was like, you don't know this, but there are already people in St. Louis who know you're going to be leaving, and they're waiting to turn you against us. You have got to choose carefully who you talk to and who you trust when you get out there.
There's a cult waiting for you. We're the cult that's here for you. They're the cult that's waiting for you.
Right, exactly. He was like, don't trust anyone. They're going to try and make you think differently about us. And I was like, at that point, I was kind of starting to come to, you know what I mean? And so I just remember filing it away in this, like, I don't know what this is about kind of file. Like, this is just weird. Which, once I got away, I was like, dude, that was really fucked up. So,
yeah,
that was my goodbye coffee. Actually,
goodbye coffee.
Bob was also there when I first, like, when kind of the tower started to crumble in my mind for all this shit.
Yeah.
Because I was at a meeting with Bob. This is when I was counseling in Atlanta, Georgia. And
was Devin the head of Atlanta at that point in time?
No, Devin was, by that point, Devin actually had quit. He had recently quit.
Okay. Okay.
Which was like, God, I'm so glad for him. but he had been running I think it was the Augusta program.
Yeah.
At that point. So, I was at a meeting with Bob, and we're outside smoking cigarettes on a break, and all of a sudden, this news crew comes running up out of nowhere with cameras and microphones. This was in 2005.
Oh, shit.
Like, I don't know, January 2005. and news crews come running up, and they're like, they go right up to Bob and me, and they're like, Bob, man, how do you answer these allegations of unethical conduct? And I'm just like, what the fuck? And so we run inside and don't answer any questions, of course. But that moment, it was one of the times that there was kind of another round of local families were getting concerned and upset, and so they would alert the media, who would then do investigations. This happens kind of throughout the country, throughout the history of Bob's programs. Yeah. And sometimes he gets run out of a city, sometimes they adapt and are able to look more legitimate. Second one is what's happened the past several years. Folks can morph, you know? And so that experience was just the one that like really tipped the scale for me, that I started thinking like, what am I involved in? Like, something's really weird here. This? And I don't know how I ended up in this spot in my life, but I gotta figure some things out. So that's what began it. It took me a few months to finally be able to get to the point where I was like ready to leave, and there was a lot involved in that. But
did they fight you on leaving? Like,
they didn't fight me too hard. Not in the way that I would have thought. The fighting, I think, was more those subtle ways, like I just described at the Bob Coffee. It was
those little tiny, like those little bitty, those little
like
hints.
Paper cuts, trying to scare me, trying to make me like suggest that I wouldn't be able to cope, or that I was, I wasn't thinking clearly. When I was leaving, I was one of the first of kind of this exodus of a lot of counselors at that time. Because financially they weren't making enough money, and they started to lay people off. Like they would, I certainly was.
They laid people off? Whoa.
Yeah. So I wasn't making enough money, and I was going to get a second job as I was considering whether or not to leave in those last few months. And I talked with Clint Stonebreaker about it, and initially he was like, okay, go ahead, you're allowed to do that.
And then he was like, no.
Interrupt. And then he was like,
you'd be out in the normal public.
What'd you say?
You'd be out in the normal public, like with everybody else. They're probably scared shitless, like, we can't put one of our plants here in the normal public. They're going to fucking figure this shit out.
I'm sure that was a factor, but also they are always thinking about their bottom line and their power. And so he called me back and he was like, well, if you're considering that, why don't you go ahead and look for a full-time job, because actually we can't afford to pay you anymore. If you still want to keep working, if you still want to be with the kids and stay on, we would love for you to do that, but we can't afford to pay you anymore. And so fortunately, in the just before he called me to say that, I had decided I was done and this was enough, and I was ready to go home, and I was confident enough in myself finally to be able to say that. And so I just was able to say thanks but no thanks, I'm leaving, this is it. And so that was my last day.
Right, that was it. You were just like, I'm fucking done. That was it. I'm fucking done.
Right. Like, you're only paying me fucking peanuts right now. I'm not going to keep doing this for no money.
So Jesus. That's a nightmare. I mean, I had heard stories, I had basically figured out, financial breakdown. They would always be like, oh yeah, all the guy counselors, except for one or two, lived in the same fucking house. You know what I mean? They all lived in the same house. I was like, okay, that's not normal.
Not cool.
That's not normal. And then I'd be like Jason Hutchings at one point in time, he got all his rides from Devon, you know what I mean, to everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like him and Kate, went the three of them, okay. They all, you know what I mean? And it just so happened, Kate was in a relationship with Devon, and, you know what I mean? It's okay,
conveniently.
conveniently, this doesn't seem all put together and planned. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't seem all put together and planned or anything. Like, all right. And
not at all. Not at all.
I gotta say, I've apologized to Devin so many times because I really like him, like, outside of the program, and every time I'd see him, like, after I bailed, it was such a weird thing because I was a professional body piercer forever.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so, like, he would see me at the mall. We would literally hang out and talk. He would come by and we would literally hang out and talk. And
Wow.
he would, when he saw me, and, like, we wouldn't talk about the program or anything. We just bullshit for a few minutes and laugh about some stupid shit. And I was like, okay, like, I get it now. He's just in as deep as everybody else, and deeper.
Yes.
You know, I was like, it finally struck me because he would be with, like, another guy from the, like you know, somebody in YG, you know, and they wouldn't talk to me, but Devin would talk to me. You know what I mean? Like, they wouldn't talk to me like they're like, oh, I know not to, you know, but Devin would talk to me, and I'd be like, okay, yeah, like, and I'd never, you know, that's when my hatred for the whole thing went away. When I made that realization, like, I was like, Devin still talks to me. Like, I had lip rings and shit. Like, my hair was tiger striped, but Devin still talked to me like a normal human being, and we just hung out. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, he's just in way over his fucking head.
Exactly.
He's in deep water. You know, he's just in deep water.
Yeah.
And,
yeah. That's cool that you could see that. I love that story about Devin.
You know?
Devin was very special to me, and he continued to be afterwards. You know, we talked a lot about getting out, and it affected him even more deeply than me because he was in for over 10 years. And like you said, I mean, it was so deep. It was so deep. And
well, they
he was
kept him
incredibly disillusioned.
They kept him from, like, he has a good family.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, he comes from a really good family, you know what I mean? And they you know, they really tried hard to keep him from his family. And just from his own story, you know what I mean? And I had heard it tons of times, you know what I mean? And they tried really hard to keep him from his family. And that was the saddest, when I came to the realization, like, that striking moment in my head that I'm like, okay, like, he's just in a deeper part of this situation than I am, you know?
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow, you know?
Right, like, he's not your enemy. He's just
a guy.
He's
just a guy. He's just a guy, just a person like the rest of us, you know? A really cool person. And, man. That's just the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of really good people who have been involved in that. I met a lot of good people through that.
You know, yeah, Kate Klein, I was like, really, like, I guess she's doing something with, like, a Catholic rehabilitation program now, and I guess
interesting.
Yeah, something to do with a Catholic rehabilitation program. Kind of broke off, and now she's like the director of that. Yeah, that's what she's doing now, I guess. And then, man, there's such a heroin epidemic there in St. Louis now that it's gotten out of control.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah, it's gotten out of control. I guess that's all the Crossroads program is really kind of trying to aim themselves towards anymore. Because that's what's giving them validity, that there's an actual problem and an actual epidemic now.
Yeah, that's interesting because I really don't know. I have not kept myself informed on what's going on with the group. I don't know what they're up to these days. I can't imagine. I mean, like, they would have to be dealing with the opioid crisis, and that's really disturbing because It's some really serious stuff, you know. The
That is,
opioid
yes,
crisis
yes.
is serious, and it
Yeah.
is common that people die. So
I've
that,
lost probably 12 friends over the
yeah.
course of the last 10 years, at least. At
And
least.
so the fact that this organization, that from my experience, does not have a well-rounded, trauma-informed, you know, scientifically up-to-date approach to
Right.
addressing substance abuse and dependence, and is likely to do much more harm than good to someone who really needs help. Yeah, but it's a tricky situation because it continues to be the case that there's not a lot of good help, period.
That's true.
And,
Oh, yeah, that's absolutely true.
and it's really unfortunate because I've continued to have, every now and then, like, people will ask me if I would refer a family or a young person to Crossroads currently. And I continue to say no, like, based on my
Right.
experience, absolutely not. I wouldn't recommend anyone go there. Even if they've added, you know, like, licensed professionals, or I don't care, like, if they've got a psychiatrist on board, like, honestly,
It gets,
to
yeah,
me,
yeah.
it's all window dressing. They know how to secure legitimate, but they never were. Like, our counselor training program was not
Nothing legit.
anything like adequate, legitimate training for fucking helping people with life problems, much less trauma and addiction. Like, good Lord. So yeah, it's a complex situation, but yeah, I've continued to tell people no, I would not recommend that. Find anything else, and sadly, like, there's not a lot else for young people. It's just the truth of it.
Yeah, like, it gets scary because once you leave Crossroads, you're like, I don't know if I could ever, like, if you did have a problem, the thought becomes, could I ever trust anyone else again in that sphere of influence?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Around seeking help. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of, I mean, that's one of the things that I work with clients who are coming out of cult experiences or in recovery from that
Right.
now. And that's a common feature that we talk about, that, I mean, it predisposes you to mistrust helpers. Professional helpers become suspect because your experience of them has been that they were manipulative.
Right.
And they did not have our best interest at heart. You know, really, the primary interest of Crossroads was money and Bob's narcissism. And this kind of hierarchy that formed around him.
I think I've got this right. So have you ever read David Cherry's story?
I don't remember the whole thing, but I've read a lot of what David Cherry has shared about his experience. It's really incredible that he shared that stuff.
Yeah. Like, I mean, there was just like some, like, he wanted $10,000, you know what I mean, a week, like right off the bat. Bob basically gangstered everybody into this sobriety situation. You know what I mean? And he used Dave as like his credibility because he had the licenses and he had the degrees and he had the ability to start the program for him.
Yeah, he's good at using people in that way. You know, they're really good. He's good at, or at least he used to be. At this point, I doubt it, but he used to be good at being able to identify people who could be very influential, and that then trickled down throughout the whole group. You know, like they choose steering committee based, like, which
Right.
is, you know, for those who don't know the lingo, like the steering committee was this kind of, in the group it was considered, I don't know, kind of like this team of non-professional, but
Those special,
formal,
who was
very special,
those were
knowledgeable,
deemed, yes, yeah,
the most wise, or the coolest, basically people in the group who were supposed to be like your mentors or the people who you looked up to, and they were the ones who lead the meeting and they do a lot of front work for the staff, basically. For
yes,
free.
yeah.
And
They're coaxed into it becomes a tool to, like I brought up that dating situation earlier. So my sponsor at the time, and I'm not gonna, you know what I mean, I don't name names when it comes to like specific events, but the way he sold me on asking this girl on a second date was that he said, "You're gonna get put on steering committee next week." And I was like, okay. He's like, I didn't want to have to tell you ahead of time. You know what I mean? I didn't want to have to tell you ahead of time, but yeah, you're going to get put on steering committee next week. And I was like,
oh.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. And that made me way more disillusioned. You know what I mean? I was like, so me asking out a girl that I don't want to date gets me on steering committee? Like,
right? Like, what is the connection between these things?
Where is this? What the fuck is going on? Like, what the fuck are you people trying to manipulate, you know? And then you realize you've been manipulated the whole time, you know? You realize how badly you've been manipulated the whole time and you didn't realize it. You know?
Indeed.
So.
Yeah, well said.
You know. So, all right, I think we're going to draw this thing to a close.
Okay.
It's been good talking to you, Christina. Like, dude, this has been fucking killer. Like, I'm serious. Like, there's a lot of information here, and there's a lot of insight that, like, other people who... We all dreamed of being on staff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We all dreamed of being on staff. We thought that was our only job that we were ever going to do for the rest of our lives at one point in time. When you get into this,
it was.
And like, you've given a lot of insight into that realm of experience, that realm of I mean, we've all seen the videos of Bob doing the training videos, like
oh my god,
oh my god, he just dropping N-bombs like for no reason, just him just like shitting on everybody.
Yeah.
And just like, but that's the real deal. Like me getting to, you know, hear it from a real human being that like these people, like they had your whole life. You know, they controlled your whole life.
Yes. Exactly.
Do you not want to have go ahead. I'm sorry. Got excited.
I was going to say they control your whole life, and it's for their benefit, not yours. And there's a lot of harm in that, like, including all of the bigotry you just highlighted. Yeah, that's all a part of it. All a part of this kind of unjust hierarchy that gets set up.
They're the enemy. We are the champions.
Yeah, in every way. There's that thinking.
Wow.
I cut you off, though. What were you about to say?
No, you're okay. I cut you off. I totally cut you off. It was my bad. I got excited for a minute, and I just kind of whenever something exciting comes in my head, I'm like, okay, gotta go. I gotta talk.
Sure.
I'm excited.
Yes.
But yeah, we're about.
This has been really fun. I could talk about this forever. This is.
You want to do it again?
You
want to do it again sometime?
Yeah.
Like we'll do it again.
Absolutely.
Maybe in like a couple months. Like we'll do it again.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, that'd kick ass, dude.
Let's do it.
All right.
This has been really cool and very comfortable. You guys have been great to talk with.
Thank you.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Well, this has been ADHD. This is we love you guys, and well, dude, I hope you guys listen to this because it's very, very important to me that you guys do, because this has like been a big part of my life that's like drilled in the back of my head that I literally something I can't let go of, you know. And I know Christina probably thinks the same thing. Like, this is just one of those things. It just keeps on going on in the back of your head. You're like, how did this ever happen? Yeah. How did this work out? You know, how, you know, and
it remains a part of you.
All right. We thank you guys for listening. It's been Amy.